of it, and there's a little bit more information come to hand too, which he'll also cover.
Great. Good morning, afternoon. Got a information paper for you for Councillor Remuneration for post-election at the end of the year. So really just a bit of a heads up on the thoughts of the authority and how they've come to their decisions about their new index, which they've brought in for this round. So I guess the start is just having a look at, you're probably aware in the last couple of years the authority has been looking at adjusting how they've come to their decisions regarding remuneration. The latest they've come back with is what they call a size index, which is based on both kind of the population of the region and the expense of the council, and they've worked out their calculations, what remuneration they feel should be in place, and they've come back with a base salary for councillors and a base salary for the chair, and also on top of that have got a funding pool of 1.5 times the base councillor rate as a pool that can be used for positions of responsibility. And I guess that is the major change from previous years, and where the big money change is in that area. And I guess in the paper that you've got in front of you, we've just done a bit of a comparison between where we're sitting at the moment and where that would be using the same assumptions after the elections. And as you'll see, the major change is in the positions of responsibility. Currently we've got 5, and again that's something that may change after the election, but for comparative we've used the same 5 and divvied up that whole pool of that we have, which again is something that you'll need to decide at some stage whether you'll use all that pool or how it will be divvied up as well. So there's not a decision for this council. Well, actually we initially didn't think so, but we've just received this week, after the paper's gone out, a frequently asked questions, which is great because as the attached paper that you do have isn't very informative of how they've come to decisions and what needs to be done. So they've given some extra information which we will distribute to you very shortly after this. And it outlines that actually this council by the 19th of July needs to put a proposal of how that will be divvied up. Not today, no, sorry, so we won't spring that on you, but so at next council meeting, the end of next month, we'll bring a paper forward with some options and how that will be distributed, which is a bit odd given that the makeup will be different potentially, and you may even want more positions of responsibility and things like that. So they're going to get you to make a decision, which can then be adjusted after the elections if need be.
Mr. Chairman, is there a committee meeting it could go to prior to the council? I don't think this is probably going to need double debate.
Yeah.
There is a corporate and strategic meeting on the 10th of July, but there's no council meeting between then and the 19th of July, which is when the Remuneration Authority would like your response. So, I mean, one option is that you are able to make a decision of council that day, or have a special council meeting just to consider.
Or is there another standing committee that which could have a corporate item on it?
Well, the Environment and Services Committee on the 12th of June, 2 weeks' time. So the agenda goes out next week. Sorry.
Well, hang on, let's finish that. Mr. Collins, how would you be able to put a paper together by Thursday next week?
The agenda goes out next week.
I'm sure we could, yeah,
okay,
if you'd like to do that.
Thank you. So, but what would go out next in the next couple of weeks? It would be simply a recommendation that this council would be making to the incoming council. Was that, or would it be binding
to the authority themselves, and then potentially can be adjusted with the incoming council after that point?
So it's not a binding decision.
Yeah, it's a little bit. It's a very strange process.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure it is.
Just subsequent to that question, and the only decision we will be making is on the remuneration to committee chairs, assuming there's 5 of them. That's all we'll be talking. That's the
Yes.
only discussion point. Everything else has been determined by the Remuneration Authority, correct?
Yeah, it's correct.
Yeah.
Chairman, in the past, and I know that the Remuneration Authority did a total rethink as to how they measure appropriate levels of remuneration. But in the past, we've been given a pool for which we had the ability to decide what differentials were there. Have we lost that ability now? Am I reading this now, that the Remuneration Authority is imposing the difference on us of an ordinary council and a councillor with added responsibility?
So there's a base salary, which is set for both chair and councillors, and then this additional pool of 1.5 times the base salary for a councillor is being able to be divvied up as you see fit for those responsibilities. Discretionary. So you don't have to use it all, but you
Can't be a 1.1 or 1.2 differential.
No, don't think so.
Yes, it does.
Yeah, up to. Sorry, I'm not sure what you mean by 1.1.
Yeah, you don't have to spend the total 1.5%,
Right.
but it's 1.5% is there for you to
1.5
determine
times.
spending, but you can go up to, as Martin says, it's up to. So, but most councils will spend what's on the table, I would think, given over the last 5 years the increases have been absolutely minimal.
That cannot be redistributed amongst ordinary councillors.
No, I
So
met with the
the-
remuneration team as part of the regional council effort. We went down and saw them, and that's exactly right. So some councils in the past, just to be clear, have wound down their councillor rem and wound up their chair rem. That can't happen now. There's a set rate for a councillor, that's it.
Which, as you'll see, is quite similar to how it is at the moment, value for value-wise. It's not a great step up or down there. It is just in this other area.
Just a comment, then a question. A confirmation. My understanding is that the rationale is that the Commission requires these decisions to be made so that candidates for election will know what their remuneration is most likely to be.
Sorry, I didn't add that. You're correct, councillor. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's very sound and wise, particularly when candidates may face another election again within 12 months. But just a question, and I'm not sure whether you consider it appropriate or not. How have salaries for, say, mayors of Napier and Hastings moved vis-a-vis the movement in the chairman of this council's salary?
They've just sent out to each council their portion. I think there was an article in the Dominion Post a month or so ago with a few of those other councils in there, which I can point you to if you want to have a look. Overall, they've said there's about a 9% increase in all councils. This council in particular is 11 after they've done their calculations, and assuming they use all of that pool funding. So it does fluctuate a little bit. They've tried to obviously make it fair all over, and from here on in you would imagine there would be no huge increases like that. But
Right, any other questions? Councillor Curtin.
Yeah, well, thanks, Mr. Chairman. They're certainly very, very weighty questions, the most important questions the council can consider, particularly ahead of climate change by a long way. So I get this quite clear. The councillor rate and chair rate are fixed. Should we choose to pay, we can pay up to 1.5 times that to a committee chair. Is that correct?
there's a pool. So say it was 40,000 was the base rate.
Mm-hmm.
You've got another 60 to apply
Distribute.
to everybody.
Oh, okay, so
Yeah.
depending on the number of chairs,
That's
you,
right.
you would distribute. But the maximum you can go to is 1.5, is
That's
that correct?
correct.
So, am I reading this right to say that if we chose a lesser premium for the chair position, say 1.1, 1.2, the balance would then be returned to the general rate as opposed to consumed by councillors, is that? How it
That is
works?
correct, in that we are having to fund this from the general rate.
We couldn't possibly contemplate that, that's the thing.
Okay, well, it is a recommendation to receive this paper. Are there any other questions? You happy to move? And we look forward to the subsequent paper. You're happy to second, Councillor Scott? You wish to speak?
No, the only comment I'll make, it was, I think, a bit unfortunate that Hawke's Bay Today misreported this agenda item, I think, in yesterday's paper. And I just hope that perhaps a more accurate report comes out of this meeting, Mr Chairman.
Thank you. Seconder?
Worth noting that this hasn't been worked out on the basis of just a percentage increase. It has been a re-analysis of what constitutes the business of each council. And I do note that over the years of the state in the paper from 2008 to 2013, the cumulative rate of a CPI index, and it's not compounded, was 16.6%, and the increase in council salaries was 5.76%. I suspect that's probably repeated out there in the real world, that there hasn't been the shift in income that reflects the shift in CPI. So I suspect that a lot of people have been left behind. This is receiving the paper only, so what comes out of it next
The
is...
debate ensues. Any other speakers?
Just briefly, Mr Chairman, I'm very pleased to see this opportunity for discretion being given to councillors now. Previously, there was no discretion. The Remuneration Authority determined the amount the pool was fixed, and the distribution was made of the total pool. So this is a good opportunity for councillors to say, look, you know, we are seeing the opportunity here to make sure that the ratepayer is not adversely affected, and so it gives us that scope not to hide behind the Remuneration Authority's decision making.
No further speakers. Councillor Rem as well.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Chair. Well, I'm glad that there's going to be the opportunity to further look into this, because I think this paper does open a bit of a can of worms, and I'm really struggling to see how the Remuneration Authority could recommend such a huge discrepancy between committee chair salaries as opposed to regular councillors, which they're already getting an average with 5 committee meetings a year. They're about $1,000 extra per meeting than other councillors, and that's could go up to a maximum of $3,000 per meeting extra, which just seems absolutely extraordinary. Mr Chair, this is not going to affect me personally because I won't be here at the next triennium, so there's nothing to do with me personally. But as a matter of equity, I would be interested in more information about what other councils do regarding those differences. I will point out that as a councillor who's on 2 extra committees from my colleagues, I attended a maximum of 49 meetings against some of my colleagues' 35 meetings for the same remuneration, and that's fine. But to greater augment the differences, I just think is unnecessary. Mr Chair, as it's pointed out in this paper, this extra money to fund this is going to come from the ratepayer, and that's an extra $40,000 from October to this year to June next year. And I do sort of concur with Councillor Curtin's idea that it's really not a good idea to tax our ratepayers further with with extra finances. I think regional councillors are already well paid, particularly in relation to other authority, other city and district councils. And of course, the council does have the option of not recommending those increases in pay to the extent that's been suggested. Thank you.
Anyone wish to sum up?
I just really thank you for the to the councillors who contributed in that discussion, Mr. Chairman. Their points are all valid and well taken. I will, however, just point out through you to Councillor Rem as well that the work of a chairman of committee is an awful lot more than attending to chair the regular committee meetings, and that would be the lesser part of the work of a chairman of committee. In fact, at times it comes very close to the amount of workload that the chairman of council carries. So there's a little bit more to the story than what she indicated, but I don't want to argue that today. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I support the resolution.
Thank you. Well, I'll put that motion, and all those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, no. Carried. Let's break till 1 p.m. for lunch, please.